Welcome, everyone, to an NCAA Digital March Madness Men's Basketball Selection Committee chat. I'm Andy Katz. Pleased to be joined by Dan Gavitt, the Senior Vice President at the NCAA. They're at selection headquarters in Indianapolis. Dan, we are on day 2 of the process. On Wednesday, there were votes taken in terms of the at-large pool, the under consideration. Where do we stand in terms of the number of at-large in and teams under consideration?
Well, great to be with you, Andy. It was a good first day here with the selection committee. Their initial ballot resulted in 20 teams being selected for the at-large field and 38 teams being put on the under consideration board. So a total of 58 teams in play. That number is a little lower on average for the teams that were selected as at-larges. But right on par with the overall number of 58. I think the committee was a little bit more disciplined after talking all season long about putting teams into the field on initial ballot, wanting to have more discussion today about those next teams that will go into the field.
And how many more do you anticipate maybe being added to the field today?
I expect that there'll be 8 to 10 teams will be added here this morning through early afternoon. Of course, this is a really busy day, as is tomorrow, with so many quarterfinal round games around the country. So we'll get to a point, likely at some point this afternoon, where the committee will want to stop, watch games, see how resumes play out here the next day or two before continuing to complete the field in the next couple of days.
And Dan, where does the committee stand on those top 2 lines?
They did see the first 2 lines late last night, Andy. Initially, of course, many of those teams, most of them are still playing. So it's just an initial seeding of the 1 and 2 lines. There will likely and certainly be movement among those lines in the coming days with results from conference tournament games. But it's important to start putting teams in some order.
So teams could move into the 2 line, but of those 8, we wouldn't anticipate anyone moving into the conversation outside of that 8 to be a 1. Is that correct?
I'd say there's probably less likely that, someone that's not currently on one or 2 would move all the way up to the 1 line, but not impossible. There's games, obviously, that we played all the way through Sunday. Each one of them will be taken into consideration, and what the complete body of work is will be considered in every decision around seeding. Yeah, I think they feel really good, and there was a lot of consensus at this point, at least on Wednesday night, at that point, of those top 2 lines, at least the teams that would be in the mix for those 2 lines.
So you say a lot of games going on. These are conference tournament games, but they are just one game among, the entire season. So how much value is put on that one game, that one last audition, if you will, for the committee?
Well, every game's important all the way through Sunday afternoon. Every game will be taken into consideration and complete a team's final resume, their full body of work. But by the simple fact that it's a conference tournament game doesn't mean the games take on more weight than games we played 2 weeks ago or even 2 months ago during the regular season. In many cases, they're important because they're neutral site games, and so where they fall into the quadrants, quad 1, quad 2, change versus an in-season game that's played either home or away. But they don't get more weight than games that are played throughout the course of the season. And I think the committee does a really good job of making sure that they don't use recency bias in terms of a team looking really, really good, playing extremely well, maybe winning by a big margin, or conversely, not playing well and losing by a substantial margin. It's, again, only one game out of 30 plus. And it's important not to apply recency bias and have that be an overreaction to a single game.
And Dan, lastly, on Wednesday in the ACC, 2 iconic coaches, Jim Boeheim at Syracuse, the Hall of Famer, Mike Brey at Notre Dame, transformative men's basketball coach in South Bend. Both coached their last games at those institutions during the ACC tournament. I just want to get from you, come from basketball royalty. What are your thoughts on those 2 individuals and their impact on the game?
Well, a little emotional for me to see them coach their last games at 2 places they've had such a huge impact on. Syracuse and Notre Dame. Together, they represent 70 years of excellence in coaching Division I college basketball. Two tremendous guys, good friends that have been so impactful to the game of college basketball, impacting the lives of their players, their coaching staff, and really being leaders in the NABC and for the coaching profession. They've been great partners and counselors to me and others in the game. And, their voices will be missed, both in the locker room, on the sideline, and in meetings, but I know that they'll still be involved with the game, and just want to thank them for all they've done and congratulate them on just tremendous careers, and great ambassadors for the game of college basketball and the NCAA tournament.
Well said, Dan. Appreciate it. We got a lot of basketball to watch on Thursday.
Thanks, Andy.